pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Secretary, please call the roll.
Chairman Judd.
Here.
Commissioner Scattini.
Here.
Machado.
Here.
Meyer.
Here.
Houston.
Here.
Sanzeri.
Here.
Martinez.
Here.
And I am here.
Okay. Item 4 is verification of agenda posting.
The agenda for the Airport Advisory Commission of the City of Hollister regular meeting of October 26, 2016 was posted on the bulletin board at City Hall on October 17th at 10 a.m. per Government Code Section 54954.2.
Okay, thank you. Item 5 is the consent item, which is to approve the minutes of the meeting of September 28th. If nobody has any issues with them, entertain a motion to accept them.
So moved.
That was who? Steve? Robbie? Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Steve, okay. No discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 6 is public input. At this time, if there's anybody that has anything to speak, say on an item that is not on the agenda, we'll be happy to hear from you.
We have 2 speakers tonight, but I guess I'll call Ruth first.
Because Ruth gave her card in first.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, I wanted to thank the staff out at the airport for all the things that they helped us with to put on the groundbreaking of the new focal point for the airport. We didn't actually break ground. The Gophers broke ground, and we will carry on at some time. You missed a good event if you didn't come. Anyway, we will have a bigger event when it is completed. I also want to mention to you that if you want to put down on your notes with your pen, December 4th, we're having our annual holiday party at Payne's. Now, it's always a fun time. Everybody's always invited. You just have to get a hold of me. I can send you invitations. I don't have everybody's address, but I have most of your addresses. I could send you all invitations. And hopefully you'll come, because 70th anniversary only comes out once a year, or once in 10 years, I should say. So we hope to see you. Don't forget, December 4th, 5:30 at Payne's.
Thank you, Ruth. Another speaker?
Yes, sir. Tim Burns.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for your dedicated service to the community with what you do. I would like to bring up an issue that has just come to my attention, and I'm not sure the community is aware, but I certainly heard it at the last City Council meeting. That concerns me greatly. It's my understanding that the air show will no longer go forward, and if that's correct, that's very concerning to me, recognizing the cost involved. Versus what we tend to spend to underwrite the motorcycle rally. And it's my understanding that it doesn't come out of the general fund. And I would hope that there would be a more broad-based community conversation. I know it takes a tremendous amount of work. I can't actually relate to it. I've never put on an air show. But I really think that this community benefits directly from that. And it is something that is family-oriented, and I know that it didn't happen overnight and it didn't happen by accident. So I would ask that maybe you lobby your council members, or at least the community, to express the concerns. I mean, it's one of the few things that I think, frankly, Hollister does quite well, and the record speaks for itself. And I'm very disappointed to think that it might not happen this coming year. Again, thank you for all that you've done. Thanks to all the volunteers, and thanks to Mr. Chimlis as well. I know it's a monumental task, and you're to be recognized for that. And hopefully we can find a way to move this forward on a regular basis without the drama that has to be associated with it. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
What was your name, sir?
Tim Burns.
Tim Burns?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you for your comments. Turns out there is an item on our agenda today which is titled Air Show. So if you want to stick around for that, we can maybe discuss it more. Okay, any other public comments? If not, we'll move on to item 7, reports. Item 7A is AIP Phase 1.
Just a reminder that that is in a holding pattern, no pun intended, until CAL FIRE completes their annual operations. So hopefully here in the next month, we should know when that's going to happen. And then once that's happened, then we'll start working on this item.
Okay. Item 7B, CAL FIRE.
We scheduled a meeting with the local representatives from CAL FIRE on November 7th with the city manager and myself to discuss their request for an ongoing lease at their current location. And hopefully at the same meeting we can discuss their future intentions towards the other side of the airport. As everyone's aware, that lease was signed 8 years ago and no action has been taken by the state to build the new base and move.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Mike.
Go ahead.
Didn't you, at the last meeting, had somebody that's going to, some gal that's going to help you?
Yes, the city council approved us to spend a little bit of money on a consultant to help lobby the legislatures that's affected by our local CAL FIRE. We have concluded one of those meetings. We met with Senator Monahan's staff over in Monterey. Senator Monahan actually was affected by both the Sobranos fire and the Santa Cruz fire that just happened. Both of those occurred in his district. It was a very productive session with his staff. We educated them on things that they were not aware of. They are very concerned, though, that they don't represent the district that the airport is in directly. And I told them, we're just out there educating them, and they are involved because this base does provide them with air cover. So I think it was a very productive meeting. Our next meeting is scheduled for when I get back from MBAA in November, and we're going to be meeting with a former Santa Cruz County supervisor who's representing a little more north in their district. He's the head of the aviation caucus. We're also going to be meeting with our local folks once again, and the new folk whenever they get elected.
You give us a report after that meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Robbie, is your mic on?
No.
Okay, thanks.
How's it now? Better?
Yeah, that's better. Okay, no, we don't have to say it all over again. All right.
I had a question.
You had a question? Go ahead, Rob. Gordon.
So the meeting you have is on the current leased?
Yes, they've expressed a desire to extend the lease in the current location for another 5 years.
So the lease is up now,
It will be up in about 6 months.
and they want to continue that lease?
That is correct.
Interesting. So this is, well, I guess they both go together, both subjects go together with a...
They do. And hopefully by meeting directly with the CAL FIRE representatives, we can have a little more productivity than normal when we're meeting with the state in this situation, because it's actually a 3-party agreement with the state. CAL FIRE is really negotiating with the Department of General Services, and then the Department of General Services talk to us, and then we talk back to the Department of General Services, and then they talk back to CAL FIRE, and messages are getting confused, and it's like playing telephone, and it doesn't work. So we're going to try to meet directly and explain our needs, and hopefully we can address their needs, and we can come to a mutually agreeable resolution.
Well, that current 5-year lease, isn't that pretty disadvantage to the city at the moment, dollar-wise, and or was that boosted up 5 years ago?
Well, that's a loaded question.
I know.
So I haven't really, well, I need to do a little more studying on that subject prior to the meeting, obviously, so I have the numbers fresh in my head. We made an offer of a certain amount for that lease.
Did I say something wrong?
Or I did. We made an offer of a reasonable amount for us on that lease because the airport needs that property vacated in order to move forward with its master plan and with other plans that need to happen at the airport itself, some exposures we have and other things. If they want to continue to occupy that property, it's becoming more and more expensive for us to allow them to occupy that property. They don't want to pay us any more money. That's one of the stumbling blocks. So I made 2 reasonable offers and have been met with severe resistance. So hopefully on Monday we can get to the bottom of whatever's creating the resistance and remove it and move forward.
Give one more question, I'll quit. It seems that the city of Hollister has always been lowballed by the state, and I think in the past all the other CAL FIRE locations have been a lot better and financially better at least than what we have. So are we anywhere near our competitors, not competitors, but our compadres in the other areas?
We're a lot closer than when I took over.
Like Paso Robles?
We're a lot closer than when I took over. We were at about $3,500 a year, and now we're up in the 40s a year, $40,000 a year.
Now, isn't Paso Robles brand new?
Well, not anymore. It's
4 or
probably
5 years or whatever.
6 or 7 years old, yes.
Yeah.
Well, isn't there a sign over on Fairview, CAL FIRE coming soon?
Fire Station 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So we're in negotiations, and we'll get to the bottom of whatever's doing it, and we'll get something worked out.
Any further questions?
I guess I'm worried about if we got a game plan now with the consultant and all that. It kind of bothers me is that which the egg or the chicken goes first. If we get tied up into a longer term lease, I wouldn't want to see a long term lease when we got a consultant working to shift them to another location. I mean, on our base.
Well, I mean, just off the top, we've lost $64,000 so far on the other lease because they don't pay us a drop of rent until they move, and the rent's about $640,000 over the 8 years that it's been going on because it's about an $80,000 a year lease, and we haven't made a dime yet. They've tied up that area, and frankly, that's acting in bad faith if you ask me. So decisions need to be made, and both the city manager and I are working towards resolving those issues.
No, I said I quit 2 questions ago. I quit.
Okay. Any other questions on this topic? If not, we'll move on to, item 7C is a topic that we're trying to not talk much about, so we'll just pass on that. All right? No?
So 2000 Aerostar is under construction. That's the report.
Okay. Item 7D, new grant ALP.
So our new grant is approved this year for the federal government. It's about $300,000, and it's going to pay for ALP update and the master plan narrative to be completed. So the master plan's about 10 years old, I think, or maybe a little more. So to keep it fresh and current, we go through and update it, and that's what an ALP master plan narrative is called. So we're beginning that project, and we're, in fact, the consultant that's been tasked with that is meeting with us on November 14th all day. So that project will be beginning then. So, and I have a meeting tomorrow in San Francisco with the FAA to go over our future AIP grants. Our next one is the design of the CAL FIRE taxiway, the taxiway on the other side that facilitates their base, and also solves some safety issues for us, and then the construction of the next year.
So would that runway on the other side give them impetus to go ahead and move?
I'm sorry. I got somebody texting me 300 times, and it's not as big as emergency as I thought it was.
You said that the meeting tomorrow was going to go over the runway on the other side of the airport.
Taxiway on the other side, yes.
So for CAL FIRE.
Well, no, it's for other things. We've always referred to it as the CAL FIRE taxiway because it runs in front of CAL FIRE.
Okay.
The main primary reason for that taxiway is to avoid a midfield crossing,
Okay.
Because it will allow people that are over on Dean's side to get to the 3-1 threshold without having to cross the midfield on Charlie. It also includes a run-up area.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay, moving on to item 7E is glider operation.
We met with the glider operation 3 weeks ago, I guess, and we're currently in negotiation for a new lease.
Are you going to ask more in the lease?
Yes.
What was that? I didn't hear you.
Are you going to ask more in the new lease coming up?
Yes, our costs for that building have exceeded what they're paying, so yes, we are going to be increasing the rent to cover our costs.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Item 7F, Airport Marketing Symposium.
Marking.
Well, I'm sorry, marking.
I'm going to allow Steve to give the report because I sent him.
I volunteered to go. So I went to the marketing symposium. It just it was more about machines and what to use to lay paint down and different types of markings. So they showed us a hydro blaster to clean the markings off, a grinder that you put behind like a tractor. You can grind the markings off several different ways. I think in the future we will need a different paint machine for out there at our airport. It's about $30,000, but it does 3 colors, puts down 2 outside lines, 1 middle line, or you could set it up for the whole width to do the whole bars and big stuff. It seems like a lot of the painters now are going to pressure beads, which ours is just dropping, so the beads don't stick very well into the paint. They don't embed very well, so the pressure blows them in and makes them stick.
As part of that same machine?
That's all, yeah. It does 2 colors and 2 pressure pots for 2 different types of beads. You ride on it, you stand up and ride behind it. I don't know, I think ours is just kind of getting outdated. You know, learn about the different types of beads. There's a class 2 and a class 3. I believe we're using the class 3, which is the better bead. It's more reflective. More money, but more reflective. They say it's worth, for airports, it's worth doing the class 3s.
I got a question for you, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
Could the airport lease or rent one of those machines instead of buying it?
I don't know if you could lease it or not. I wouldn't think so. You know, just to rent it for the week or something like that.
Right.
I don't think so. I don't think they really rent stuff like that.
And our paint machine, we've had it for about 8 years, and we're constantly using it out there. It's not something where we can plan on getting all the painting done in a year, for a 1 week period. We're bringing the paint machine out twice a month to go fix this or fix that or touch something up or.
You know, in the symposium, they show pictures, you know, and that's the biggest thing is at night. And I haven't had a chance to get out to our airport at night yet to go check it out, but they shine a light onto the markings, and you can really see if it was done good or if it wasn't. You know, you can see the bead, if there's bead in it or not, or what they call chicken feeding, which I know we do on some of the things, the big paint deals. We spray it and then kind of pitch it sideways and make the bead go into it. And when you light it up at night, you can see it. It's just got some lines and some dull spots, and so it was good. It was a good symposium, you know, to learn how to do some of this painting and do it right. You know, a lot of it we're doing right, but we could do better. You know, now they showed how, you know, we've been moving too fast when we paint, you know, so you're supposed to go a mile an hour, I think, just under a mile an hour when you're laying the paint down to make the beads really stick in.
Okay, good.
That's it.
All righty. Thank you, Steve. Any other comments or questions on this topic? Okay. Item 7G is the PAPI, specifically the 1.3 PAPI.
So the 1.3 PAPI has been was ordered offline by the FAA Flight Review Division because it was out of adjustment. The adjustment's been made. They were supposed to come back and fly it again, and we were supposed to turn it on at that time. They have neglected to contact us, so we are endeavoring to contact them. And as soon as we can, we'll get that thing fixed.
Yeah, winter is coming, and it probably will start getting some use when the winds shift. One question, how long ago was it adjusted? I asked that because if it's been 6 months, it probably needs to be checked again before they come out.
Yeah, I think we're coming up on 6 months, our 6 month checks of both units.
We do that every 6 months?
We do.
All right. Yep.
Just like we paint every now and then too, when the market gets messed up.
Oh, okay. All righty. Thank you. Anybody else have comments or questions on this topic? Nope. All right. Item 8 is old business, and item 8A is trailer parking.
Nothing to report this time.
Okay. Item 8B is restaurant.
So we have one bid for the work to get the roof replaced and sealed up. We're working to get a couple more, and then we'll move forward.
Basically, this really it's just talking about the roof.
It's just to get the roof replaced.
Yeah.
I'm picky. I want a roof on the building before I put somebody in it.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there any schedule of when that might be an actual open restaurant?
No.
No.
Because once we finish getting the roof on, we're going to have to talk about replacing the electrical and the plumbing in the building. And then once the electrical and the plumbing are replaced, we're going to have to replace the exterior refrigerator. And once that's replaced, then we can actually put somebody in there.
What about the restrooms?
Yeah. That goes with when we replace all the plumbing.
So, I guess I'm a little confused.
It's years, not months.
I'm not sure we got the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart. You know, are you optimistic that we get a restaurant?
I am.
Okay, you answered that question.
But the building, it dates back to 1942. It was built as a jail. It has been neglected for a very long time, and it needs a new roof. That roof is, almost 70 years old? So it's time.
But wasn't there more than just a roof? Weren't the walls separating and...
No, the walls are fine.
Walls are fine.
There's enough concrete in that thing and rebar from being the jail. It's not that. That's probably one of the safest buildings in Hollister when it comes to that. But the roof leaks severely, and there's areas of rot that all needs to be cut out, replaced, and everything. The HVAC is serviceable. There's a swamp cooler over the kitchen that needs to be replaced. But the interior electrical is no good at all. You got circuit breaker panels right above where the wash sinks are, and they're all corroded, and the wiring in there is original 1942 with add-ons in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. So it just, before we put somebody in there, we just need to, and believe it or not, that's the easiest thing of all, is to rewire the thing. So.
I have just one question. There was a lot of, I thought, wiring and so forth that went on when the glider people, was it glider? No, jumpers moved in, prior to their moving in.
Very minimum.
Okay.
Just enough to make it safe.
Okay.
A lot of the old stuff was removed. So we're going to have to go back and put ceiling lights back in, and move the panels, relocate the panels, since there'll be water involved again. We didn't relocate the panels.
Okay.
So.
All right. Okay, any?
But the number one priority is to get a roof on it so it's watertight.
Yeah. We hopefully will need it. If the drought ever goes away. Tomorrow it's supposed to rain. Okay, any other comments or questions on this topic? All right, item 8C is bylaws.
So I've been tasked with modifying the bylaws, which I'll have done for the next meeting. The suggestion, there were multiple suggestions, and that's why, one of the reasons why it wasn't done, because I got confused what you were asking. So there's no way to fix the election problem where after an election we're going to have either four people up for replacement or 3 people up for replacement. There's just no way to fix that. The only way to fix, the only modification that can be made to that is that every 2 years 4 people are up for replacement, and that doesn't make any sense to change it. So we're not going to do that. But there was a suggestion about changing the election of the chairman to February. There was a suggestion to leave it where it is. There was a suggestion to make it the first of the year. So if I could just get a show of hands for February, I think that was the one I had the most people down for. I'll get the change made for the next meeting, and we can move forward. So all those who wanted February for the election of the chairman? 2, 3, okay. Solved.
You're overruled.
I'm going to leave it alone. Mid-year, that's probably why it was put there in the first place, mid-year.
Okay, so, all right. So you will have a proposal.
I'll have the draft.
Change.
I think the policy is I have to make the draft change, supply you with an original set and a draft set 3 days before the meeting, and then at the next meeting you vote to make the change official.
Okay.
And those are to be separate of your packet. So.
Okay. All right. Well.
Oh, and the other question I was supposed to get an answer on was whether or not the people that were up for replacement could continue to serve until such time as the council replaces them, and the answer from the city clerk was no. As soon as the council person's meeting is up, which is the 1st of December, at that point you're no longer on unless you're reappointed. He was quite strict about that.
When will we find out if they're reappointed?
If they're reelected, you should know here in a couple of weeks, and then it's up to them to let you know if they're going to reappoint you.
Oh, before the first year.
You have applied. If not, I have applications. If you're interested in continuing,
Who
I have
up?
applications with me right now.
Who's up? Whose term ends?
Robbie's up.
Mine.
1, 2.
Steve's up, and Fred's up.
Fred. Okay, so, all right.
And there will be one new council person.
Who's,
And who's Victor?
Victor's.
You will have a new council person.
Correct.
So you will be up in the air then.
Well, when do you have to file for the,
I can't hear you because your mic's off, I'm sorry.
no, it's on.
Oh,
Gotta get closer.
When do you have to file with the city?
I don't have that information, but I get it in as soon as possible.
Okay, because,
Because if I was the city clerk, as soon as the election results were known, I'd be getting the newly appointed council person this information so that they could have time to review it before the first meeting in December, and hopefully they can appoint somebody in the first meeting in December, so I can continue doing business in the first, in our meeting in December.
The city clerk told me it had to be by the end of October, which was in the newsletter.
Oh, okay. End of October.
what's next week?
That's
No.
this week.
This week.
That's this week.
Yeah,
This week?
that's Friday.
31st.
Day after tomorrow.
So you're the mayor appointment, aren't you?
Huh?
Yeah.
Mayoral appointment?
Yep. And he
Well, if you're up, and you want to continue, get your application in, that's for sure. Because that'll give you a leg up. All right, enough about that, I guess. Item 8D is air show.
So I met with the air show committee 2 weeks ago. I think it was 2 weeks ago. I showed them the video of the council meeting where the mayor directed me to go back and request the committee fundraise for $20,000 because, and I quote under his words, at the end of the day, it's the committee's air show. The committee thought about what their direction was, and the consensus was that that's not what they signed up to be as fundraiser. They signed up to do the air show, and I respect their opinion. So I believe there were a few members of the committee, or at least one who spoke at the last council meeting, who thanked the council for the opportunity to do 6 air shows. And the opportunity to see the positive effect that those 6 air shows had on the public. But I've indicated to the committee, and I'm indicating to you now, is my intention on November 7th to request or recommend to the city council to cancel the air show. The council has been quite expressive that they no longer want to continue to lose that amount of money. Every report I've turned in on every air show we've had, the financial impact was possible loss of $65,000. When you put on an event like this, you cannot guarantee that one person's going to come through that gate. Well, actually, I can. I can guarantee you 2 people are going to come through that gate because I pay for my wife and kid to come pick up trash at the air show, but I still buy them an air show ticket, and I can guarantee you that those sales are going to be made. But that's it. And I never wanted I never wanted to be in a situation where it was, well, you said we were going to break even or not. The rally, I know one financial impact statement for the rally was it is our intention that this event be revenue neutral. That's not me. So every air show I've written down potential loss of Fund 601, which is the Airport Enterprise Fund, of $65,000. We've learned through the 6 air shows that it costs about $20,000 of airport support to put on an air show. At our previous meeting, you folks thought about it, discussed it, and almost unanimously recommended to continue the air show at the level of $20,000 support from the airport to put on the event because of the positive impact that it makes in the public with the relations for the airport and everything else. I conveyed that information to them, but still the final direction that I received from the mayor and the council by omission, because no one else on the council said not to do otherwise, was that the committee would be responsible for coming up with that $20,000. And that's not what the committee wishes to do. So I have the council report written, except for one paragraph, and that paragraph is tonight. So I want to be able to put your comments and your reflections in the report before I turn it in. And then, like I said, on the 7th, it is my intention to recommend canceling the air show if the city council is not willing to risk the loss of the entire amount.
So you want to discuss it tonight? This group here?
What I would like is you know, if you wish to express some opinions that you would like me to include in the council report, I would like to hear those, yes.
Okay.
So you're saying the mayor's response was that the air show committee would have to come up with the money?
His direction...
All the volunteers would have to come up with this money?
That they were to fundraise for the money.
And I'd say cancel the air show.
Well, I'll speak, express my opinion. I'm the one that kept it from being unanimous to continue it, since I'm the one that in the past has voted to discontinue the air show. My only reason for voting that way, and I would still vote that way, is because of the $20,000 loss. I just don't think that we should continue to do that. I certainly believe the air show is top-notch. I think Mike has done a tremendous job. He's put on a completely professional air show every year, and it's been an outstanding air show. And I've of course been a volunteer for the air show also. The message that I guess that I would like to pass to the council is that, speaking as a member of the committee, I would reinforce that I sign up for the air show and a volunteer and that sort of thing, but not to do fundraising. I volunteer to help put on a good air show. In my opinion, I think the only way we should continue this would be if we had a major sponsor, somebody, whether a company, whatever, somebody that could be willing to come up with, say, $25,000, which would guarantee that we'd be around break even. And so far, I think Ruth has been a major person to go out and try to get sponsors, and has done a great job, but she can only do so much. And I think that the city council themselves, or members thereof, should try to do some fundraising and see if they can find a sponsor. I think that's the thing. We need a major sponsor. Somebody will say, and I think we could like plaster their name around. I mean, the city right now, the whole air show carries the city's name, but I'd like to have it the Hollister Company XYZ's air show, or something that says, where we can include their name, and maybe that would give them an incentive to feel that they'd like to sponsor it. So I'd like to pass that along to the city council, that they should find a sponsor that's willing to put up that different amount of money. Don't expect the air show committee volunteers to be doing that. That's not. I mean, Ruth. We've been lucky we've had Ruth, but she's about the only one. And most of us are on that committee to do something totally different than raising money, and that's not going to change. So that's kind of my 2 cents worth. Anybody else?
Well, I think if you tap into, I don't know if Ruth have tapped into these aviation companies like the Piper aircraft, Cessna aircraft, propellers, organization. I got a propeller I sell to, but I think I don't think we tried hard enough, and the city's not going to go out there and get sponsors. It's going to have to be up to the people at this airport, the pilots and association, and try to get sponsors. But if you don't tap into these big companies, you're not going to get any sponsors. You can't go downtown and ask the motel people to give you a sponsorship. They won't do that. People involved in aviation is the ones going to have to tap into it to give those donations and stuff to keep the airport going, the air show going. That's what I think. I know Wattsville did that one year. They went out and got people from the different aircraft, Cessna, Piper, and they had a pretty good turnout with them doing that. Until the city got involved at Wattsville City, and then it all went to pot. That's my opinion. But to ask these people, or this group here to go out and get donations, it never fly. You want to have a car wash? Maybe you can get enough donations from a car wash, something like that. It's tough, especially now. Times are pretty hard, pretty tough. Remember, you can tap into Donald Trump. Maybe he'll get a donation.
Right.
Give a lot of money out to everybody. Maybe write him a letter and see if he'll donate.
Right. All right. Any other messages that anybody would like to pass along to Mike?
Well, I think the city council and the mayor is making a mistake by canceling it. I mean, yes, it is $20,000 out of our budget. It's our operating expense for the airport. But it's, in my opinion, it's always been good PR. You can't get enough good PR with the public when the airport's involved and the noise and everything else. What's the cost of advertising? You know, we're just now getting other companies to come down and look at our airport. You know, be nice to have them put a little bit of money up, but most of these companies want to remain unnamed. So whether they could be a silent sponsor or not would be a good idea. But there again, you know, to me, I think it's a small amount of money to keep a positive public outlook towards the airport. That's been my opinion all along, and you know, I stick with that.
Anybody else?
I tend to agree with Steve. With Steve.
Anybody else?
My position remains the same. I believe what was mentioned before, and that is, you know, the public relations is just so necessary. I could, you know, appreciate the fact that the city council wants this to be a self-sustaining body, you know, agency, but unfortunately, it make it very difficult to, you know, especially in negotiations that we're currently going through with the airport. I think the city would have maybe a slightly different approach if they knew that we did have a company come in and sponsor it. They'd start asking questions. Well, why? What are they getting out of it? It could create some conversation. My hope is that at some point in the future, they'll be able to come back and say, you know what, let's bring it back. There was a lot of good that came out of it. And my hope is that they'll rethink it. It's, you know, it is a PR, you know, gold mine. But that's my 2 cents.
You want my 2 bits?
I don't know. You want to say anything?
I guess, you know, the tenure being here, the airport account is an enterprise account. meaning that it's self-sustaining within its own. So to a certain degree, I think there's some disappointment over the years that we're an advisory board rather than a deciding board without the, we still have to go to our fathers and beg for the vote. But I think it's more important that as a commission, we should have the authority to make that the decision. But it is what it is. But I think that we still should make the decision we feel that is right. It's hard for me to justify a $20,000 deficit or $20,000 PR, but somewhere in between, it's got to be worth what was mentioned, the PR that we get from this. So I kind of feel that we have to tell our above board what we think and what we believe in, and it's not there. It's not the city's. How can you say that? It's not the city's deficit, but it is. But it's an enterprise account.
It's
so
not a general fund.
As long as you stay within your account, it's costing the general fund or the city not a penny. So my feeling is we have to express the way we feel, even though it has to go to another decision.
I'd like to add something else too. Is the airport is operating in the green big time, right?
The airport is self-sufficient except for huge ticket items like replacing the main runway.
Right, we had grants to cover most of that. We had
But the airport covered the matching fund.
Right.
The airport enterprise fund covered the matching fund to match the grants to do that. For me to say the airport's self-sufficient, in my mind, it's got to be able to generate enough revenue to replace the runway if necessary and not rely on grants from the FAA. But the general fund does not contribute anything to the airport and has not for at least the 8 years I've been there.
Right. So I can see the mayor's point if the airport was running in the red, but it's not. So what's his problem?
May I ask one question? In the budget itself, I know there was years of concern that our enterprise account, the airport account, was being tagged for administration costs. So much of the city manager's cost, so much of the...
We do contribute to that each year, yes.
So we're still doing that?
Yes.
Which I think is justifiable, but there was times where I doubted that we were... I mean, the money we were given for salaries or consultation by the, whether it be the city manager, city treasurer, whatever the case may be, was not justified. It was more than necessary. If we're not there anymore, then I wouldn't argue too much then.
It hasn't been adjusted.
Yeah. So we're pretty well balanced right now, I assume. But I still think it's our decision to make, or our recommendation to make, regardless of what happens.
I agree with Gordon. As long as the money we spend does not come out of the general fund and it is strictly our own operating costs, it doesn't cost the city anything. So it should be our decision, not the city managers, whether we hold an air show or not. The city in general benefits from that. Mm-hmm. So whether it's tax revenue or whatever, the city itself, the general fund, would benefit from that. It's our expense. So I agree with Gordon, it should be our decision.
So it sounds like what you might want to include in that paragraph is that the Airport Commission, by and large, strongly recommends, and we can't say it too strong enough, to continue, even if we do have a $20,000 loss.
Interesting. Dean and I actually met with the airport manager of Watsonville the other day. And Watsonville has moved to an open house format, fly-in format. And we asked him how much that event cost him, the airport, each year to put on. And it was $45,000, right?
I don't remember the number, but they spent some money.
It was $45,000. Yeah. and they don't make any revenue at all. It's a free event. Livermore puts on an annual air show also, and it also is a free event, and it was $60,000 or $80,000 a year that the Livermore Airport is spending on that event. So
Are they enterprise accounts?
they are.
Yeah. At least at Watsonville and maybe even Livermore, there is they run the fuel concession, and I think that provides them a lot of revenue. And huh?
Yeah, Livermore and Watsonville both.
Livermore also.
Yeah.
Yeah, the city. I guess it's the city. So I guess they put the air show or put these things into their budget, and just say, it's a budget item, and if it gets spent, it gets spent.
Well, we also do.
And, so
Yeah, we budget for
there is
the
a
air show.
budget approved for the air
Right.
show next year. The council is required to set the dates each year, and their direction was to deal with the deficit, and then we'll set the dates. Since it's really inappropriate for regulatory authorities, aka city employees, to go out and request money from people that you are regulating. That can't happen. The committee's not interested in doing it, except for Ruth's work, which has been outstanding. And for anybody to say that Ruth wasn't killing herself doing it, it really isn't fair, because Ruth really was killing herself doing it. I know what Ruth went through, and I appreciate it because I worked closely with Ruth when she was doing it. But I'm behind the scenes because I'm the regulating authority. For many years of the air show, I was the director of code enforcement for the city of Hollister, and that was even more inappropriate to even get anywhere near asking anybody for money or anything else. And I never came near that line. Only recently, with the reassignment of my duties, have I actually been involved like I was. Ruth knocked it out of the park. She worked really hard. And she worked really hard for a considerable amount of money, with the size of the donations we were getting. We don't have the major manufacturer in town that can generate the sums that we're looking for. So I've long said it needs to be looked at as a business expense for PR. The majority of you agree with me. I'm still working on Dean. Every time we get together, I'm working on Dean. I have your consensus. I have your thoughts. I will convey them to council. It still doesn't change my recommendation, because if the council's not going to support the event, my recommendation is not to have the event. If the council wants to change their position and support the event, then I would agree with your recommendation to have the event, because the PR is a gold mine.
Mr. Chairman?
yes.
I know it's only verbiage, but you keep on referring to the deficit. I think it's more of a cost than a deficit.
Correct.
And I agree. And I told them that. I said, at this point, we now know what it costs to put on the air show. And we really can't make the air show any smaller. I cut it back to as small as it could be last year.
I like the idea if you made the comparison to Watsonville and whatever, Livermore, whatever's around us, that what they're willing to pay for what, if you want to call it PR, or you want to call it advertisement, whatever you want to call it, I think that's a cost that you have to absorb.
I think it's a necessary cost.
Yeah.
Just so we don't end up to where, like Reed Hillview in the Bay Area, where the public is against the airport. Even though it's still surviving, the general public doesn't like the air traffic around them. I'd hate to see our airport get to that point. And, the 20,000 that we're spending, I think, is a small percentage of our budget, and well spent for doing just that, keeping it positive in the public eye.
I also think you get a ripple effect from it too, where people come to our community, and you're never going to be able to, it's like the rally, you're never going to justify what they're spending within our merchants or within our community. And then the exposure of our community, which they noticed on the way out, and they may come back to see that entity they missed or saw on the way out. I'll be back in about a month or so to look at I don't know what the entity is, but people get surprised at different things and they come back.
And we've heard from Margaret that her flight lessons are up as a result of it. And we've heard from Leonardo that his plane rentals and his fuel sales and everything else are up because of it. So,
And that sales tax that goes into the general fund.
it is.
You know, so our local businesses, airport operating, are benefiting from it, you know, which benefits the city in the long run.
I think we've got this one.
You got what you need?
You got about a half-hour speech now.
Okay. All right. If anybody in the audience want to add any comments? Okay. We'll move on to item 9, new business. Item 9A is elect chairman.
So Dean was up for election a couple meetings ago. He's hanging on to his position. He's got the gavel in his hand. His knuckles are white around it. And he refuses to release it.
That's not true.
So we put this item in there. If you want to go ahead and elect a chairman now to correct that situation, and then we would elect a new one in February once we get the bylaws changed at the next meeting. Or if you wish, we can wait till February when we get the bylaws changed and go from there.
You want a motion on that?
Sure.
I'll make a motion, we'll wait till February.
Okay.
It's been moved.
I'll make a motion that we'll wait till February before we pick the new chairman.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Wait. That was
Short-handed.
Robbie and then Steve. All right, it's been moved and seconded to defer electing a new chairman until February. Is there any discussion on that?
No.
No?
Well, in the meantime, the status quo exists.
Yes.
I mean,
And
we'll keep
then
it.
I presume that, yeah, and
Okay.
it would include keeping me on the job till February.
Without
Okay.
a pay increase.
No pay, right. No pay increase. Whoa. All right. If no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I guess it's 7-0. Okay. I'll be thinking about who you want for a chairman.
Yeah, Dean is limited out, so come February, there will need to be a new chairman.
Am I still vice chair? I don't even know.
And I think Gordon's
Or
vice
you
chair.
vice
Gordon
chair?
is vice chair.
You were
Oh,
the
is?
former. I replaced you, right?
You're chair emeritus.
So maybe it's,
Really?
you know how to do this
I did it once before, yeah.
more than once. Think about it. Anyway, think those of you who we hope for will still be here, who you'd like to have as your chairman.
Our birthday's in February, I'll be a year older. Though.
What?
I said, my birthday's in February, I'll be a year older.
Hopefully you're wiser.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
Let's go the other way, though.
Moving right along. Item 10 is items for next agenda.
November 16th is the proper date?
What?
Can we keep the CAL FIRE update?
7A, 7B, 7D,
E?
8A.
What about E and G?
Well, I'll bring E back when I have something to bring back. And I don't have G on my agenda. I apologize.
Yeah, well,
I have an
put
old
it
agenda.
on there.
G's back
Pappy.
on there.
Yes, okay.
In capital letters.
Yes. Make it the 1-3 Pappy if you like.
And then 8A, 8B, 8C, and 8D.
8D, find out what happens.
And I'll bring 9A back in February.
Okay.
And anything else that comes up, I'll get on there.
Okay. All right, that all sounds good. Anybody have anything else they'd like to add to the next agenda? Nope. It says the next meeting date is November 16th. That's
That is a week early because the next meeting date, our normal meeting date would be on Turkey Day, and I don't think anybody wants to be here on Turkey Day.
the day before.
Well, same difference.
Yeah.
You'll all be brining your turkeys, so no one wants to be here.
Will we be able to meet here?
I believe so, but I'll confirm. If not, we'll meet at the airport.
Okay. All right, so with nothing else to be,
Make a motion to adjourn.
okay. All right, that was Gordon and Marge. Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Do we adjourn? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.